Today, we are going to talk about error handling in Voiceflow. Today, we are going to talk about error handling in Voiceflow. What I mean by error handling is when you have something like a button that you want your user to click on, they don't do that, and instead they start typing something that has nothing to do with what you really want them to be concentrating on. So how do you handle that? That's what we're talking about. We're not really talking about exception handling. Let's get started. Okay, here we are in Sophie, our support chatbot. Let's take a look at this Get Support Choices block. We have defined 4 buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have this no match. We define the no match over here, right down here. And what we've done, we've just set up a path here. I'll show you how to set this up in a moment. In this case, if they don't click a button and they type something, it's going to go down this path and then go into the AI. What we're assuming that they want to ask a question. Let's go ahead and just run this and see what it looks like. There are our 4 buttons, but I'm going to type, "My roses are dead." And there we go. We went down into the AI, and it gives a little response from the knowledge base, and then asks if there's anything else. So that's how that works. Now, exactly how does no match handling work inside of Voiceflow? Here are the docs. What happens when my user says something unexpected to the agent? So there is a hierarchy here that Voiceflow will follow. First, it looks for local triggers. If there's anything intense on that particular step, that match, that'll fire. If not, it'll look into the workflow itself and see if there are any triggers in that workflow that match what the user said. If not, it'll look at global triggers. If there are no matches there, then it looks for a local no match, which is what we just saw in that example. If there is no local no match configured, then it's going to try to answer the question from the knowledge base. And if there's nothing, if there's no match there, then it's going to go to the global no match. So let's take a look at that real quick. Back in Sophie, I'm going to back out here. We are going to click on Settings. And under Settings, we're going to look at Global Logic and Global No Match. I'll edit this. I have set up a generative response from GPT-4o Mini. I've given it a very simple prompt here. The reason I did this is I want a more human response. I could have selected static and then just typed a response, but I want it to be more human, so I think this will give a little bit better experience for the user. I don't really plan to ever hit this, but it's here in case there's something missing in the Voiceflow application. And that brings up a very important point. Always check your global no match. For example, if you were set up to a more expensive model and you just weren't setting up no matches in your Voiceflow application, you might be spending a lot more tokens than you thought you were. Okay, so that's how we set up a global no match. Let's go back into Sophie. In our workflows, we're going to look at this second workflow called the problem workflow. There are a couple of blocks here that I want to look at. The first one is PWF question answered. So we have our yes and our no buttons, and then we have this didn't click button, which is a no match. I've just given it a different name. So we have yes, no, and no match. If I click on the no match, you can see that I've configured 2 different responses, reprompts actually. If the user doesn't click a button and type something, this one will fire, and then this one will fire. If they still don't click a button, then this action will fire, which in this case is going to send them to the set AI sentiment classification block. All right, let's try this out. Did that resolve your issue? I don't care. I'm just typing nonsense here. Select yes if your question was answered. Otherwise, select no. I'm still not going to do that. One more time. Please choose yes or no. No, 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 no. Now see what happens. Okay, we are being sent over to the sentiment classification block. And because we typed nonsense, it couldn't find anything in the knowledge base and is asking us if we have any other questions. All right, so that's how that works. Well, how do you set that up? Let's go back to the problem workflow real quick. And I'm just going to drop a button block on here. Listen. So here is our button block. I'm going to type yes, add another button, type no. And now we're going to click on no match. And we can do a couple of things here. We can create responses by clicking this button, or I can create a path. Let's do the responses first. So here, click a button. And then I can generate, let's generate 3 responses. Press a button, tap a button, click on a button. So this will fire every single one of these. That's probably too many. I'm going to delete 2 of them. All right, so we have 2 here. Now, if the user still doesn't do that, we can define a path. We can either do a physical path by dragging here and going to another block, or we can choose an action. Go to block, go to intent. We can end the conversation. We can set variables and so on. Most often, we're probably going to go to another block or to an intent. All right, so that's how we set it up. Let me delete this guy. Let's look at this block now, the PWF expert contact. We have 2 buttons, and we have this didn't click button. Now this time, we've defined a path. So if the user doesn't click a button, it's going to go down to this block. And this block has several different variant responses on there. But when this block is done, it's going to go back to the expert contact block, which means this is an infinite loop. Maybe something that's a little iffy. You might not want to do it this way because the user's locked here and they could get really frustrated. And that's probably not what you want them to do, but it's here for demonstration purposes. In production, I would probably change this to something like we did in PWF question answered, that after a try or two to get them to click a button, we'll send them down a path like the sentiment AI. All right. So there are a couple of ways to do it. There's one more that I think is really, really useful. Let's go back to the main workflow. Here I have a couple of triggers configured, has problem and unhappy. Let's take a look at one of these, see how they are set up. Here we have the unhappy trigger, which maps to the intent, unhappy, surprise. And the unhappy intent has quite a few different phrases associated with it for training. The idea here is that if the user types something in this block instead of using one of the buttons, and it matches one of these intents, that's going to fire. Remember, when we're looking at the way things, the hierarchy of no match handling in Voiceflow, the workflow triggers fire before any local no matches that are set up. And that's what we have here. So let's try this out. I'm going to ignore the buttons and I am going to type, I am unhappy. All right, we can see it says match command jump. It says it matched the unhappy sentiment 99.9%. That's really good since I actually typed I am unhappy. Should be 100%. But anyway, that meant that it went down the path that we defined in that trigger. And I've set the user problem to I am unhappy, because later on what we do here is we'll get the user. Well, actually, let's do it. So it says, okay, tell me about your issue. My roses died. All right. So I regret that you're not happy. Would you like one of our team to contact you? If I select yes, then it's going to lead me down a path that will put in a support ticket or a request for a callback. And we'll look at that in a different video. But there you go. That's how you can use intents. Let's go back to the main workflow. Let's try this again, but let's not be quite so specific. This time we'll run this and we'll type something completely different that isn't, I'm not really going to say I'm unhappy. Your crew, oh, let's do it this way. I hate your crew. I hate your crew. And again, it fired. Unhappy 100%. And that's interesting. That matched 100%. And I'm unhappy matched 99.9%, whatever. But we went down the same path. So you get the idea of how that works. So it's very, very useful. So if I'm back here in the main workflow, has problem. If I type something about a problem, then it would, this trigger would fire. I'd still go down the same path, the set problem path. So there you have it. This is a very, very useful way to do no matches, because if the user is angry, or maybe the user is curious and you want to send them down a path that would urge them to buy a product, for example. But this is a very useful way to handle the user in a very personal way. So it feels a lot more organic to the user. Okay, I hope this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit that like and subscribe button to see more videos like this. We release new content every week. Have a great day.